Hello my friend, welcome to my channel Faisal Azib. When we talk about the if-else statement, I mentioned that it is control structure and also that there are more control structure, right? Well, one of other control structure are loop. And so loops are our final big topic in this JavaScript fundamental section. So loops are a fundamental aspect of every programming language because they basically allow us to automate repetitive tasks. So tasks that we have to perform over and over again. And here I like to use the analogy of running or a workout. So when you go to a gym, you may, for example, lift weight, right? And let's say that you do 10 repetitions of a certain weightlifting exercise. So we could represent that by doing something like this. Console.log. And here I will just write lifting weight repetition 1. Okay, so lifting weight repetition 1, and remember we want 10 repetition. So we would have to pass this code here 10 times. Okay, so I will do it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, and here I will replace all the numbers. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. I know it's a lot of work, but no, don't worry. Well, anyway, you can start to guess that this is probably not best practice. Just imagine that we had 30 repetition instead of 10. And then if you want to, for example, change some word here in the string, then you would have to change that in all of them. So this is really violated the don't repeat yourself principle. Do you remember? Because we are basically repeating the same code here 10 times. And all we are changing is just this number. So instead of doing all this, we can now create a loop and then put one of this line of code in there. And the loop will then run that code over and over again until we tell it up to stop. So let's implement a so-called for loop now. And that's loop which has a counter. So let's do that. And we simply write for like this, and we open a parenthesis. So little bit like the if statement. And this is for a for statement. And so it looks similar. Now, the loop statement has 3 parts. The first part is the initial value of a counter. And in the case of this current example, the counter is the value that will start here at number 1 and go all the way to number 10. So let's call this counter rep. Let rep. Okay. And he start from number 1. After this, what we'll do, we literally create here a variable called rep, and we start at 1 because, well, that's our first repetition before to continue. Now we need to use a let variable because this counter will later be updated by the for so loop. So that's the first part of the for statement. Then we use our semicolon and go to the second part of the loop statement. And the second part is a logical condition that is evaluated before each iteration of the loop. So before each time that the code in the loop is executed. So let me just write it here first, and then this will make more sense, okay? So our condition will be rep and need to stay below or equal to 10. Okay? So again, this condition that we just described here will be evaluated before each iteration of the loop. Now, if the condition is true, then the next loop iteration will run. But as soon as this condition is false, then the loop stops. And so no more code will then be executed. So basically, the loop will keep running while this condition stays true. And this is really important to realize. Okay? And let me actually write that down here for you. So for loop keeps running while condition is true. Aha, true, like this. Okay? So this is the kind of note that I hope that you are taking through the course. But this one is really important, and so I want to write it down here. Okay? It's very important. And now, I hope it makes sense that we have this condition, because in each iteration of the loop, the rep counter will be increased. And so, at certain point, it will reach 10. And with 10, just condition is still true. So 10 is still less or equal than 10. Okay? But then, after that, it will be 11. And so, then repetition is no longer less or equal to 11, and then the loop will stop. And at that point, we'll have printed this 10 string basically. Let's continue writing this so that in the end, we actually make that work. So, speaking of increasing the counter, that is actually the third part of the for statement. So, another semicolon here after the condition. And here, we actually update the counter after each iteration. So that's necessary because right now, the counter will just stay at 1 forever. And so, this condition here will never be false. And so, what we do here is to now increase the counter by 1 after each iteration. So, we can say rep equal rep plus 1. Okay? But this is look familiar to you. So basically increasing the value by just 1. Remember that in the last section we actually learned about a special operator which does just this, but in much simpler way. So instead of writing rep equal rep plus 1, we can simply write rep plus plus. I hope that you remember this. So this will take the rep value and increase it by 1. Alright. And now, all we have to do is to write the code that we want to be repeated. And so let's copy this string here. I put it now here. And then it will print this string 10 times. So let's start with that. And then afterwards, I will show you how we can actually update this number here. But for now, let's try this out. And actually, let's comment this code before to execute our loop statement. Okay. Now let's go. As you can see, that the string was printed 10 times. Do you see? 10 times. That's what this 10 here stands for. So the DevTools will not print the same string 10 times. It will simply put this 10 here. But what matters is that this logic here actually worked. So now, let's say, let's actually use this counter variable that we created here to actually increase the number in the string that we are printing out. So how do you think we will do that? Well, it is actually simple. All we have to do is to replace this number here with the current value of the counter, because this variable that we define here, so this ref variable, it is just a normal variable, and it's gonna be available here inside of this block. Okay, so let's transform this to a template string. Where is it? Like this, and I will just copy this one to transform in template string. Now we can insert that variable into the string. So we get rid of the hard-coded value, and now we basically dynamically build the string. And so here all we need to do is to put here rep variable. So simple, like this. And now we get exactly what we wrote here manually in the beginning. Okay, let's see. You see? So that works. And so let's recap exactly what we did here. So we want to look our string here. So a string like this 10 times. But of course, it could be any other repetitive operation. No? Again, we are just using console.log here so that we can see the result in the developer console. Anyway, in order to solve this problem of not having to repeat the same code over and over again, we use a for loop. And so we initialize the counter of the loop at 1. So right here, we created this new rep variable, and rep again stands for repetition, but it could be any other variable name, of course. And so we start at 1 because, well, we want to start at repetition number 1. But we could also start, of course, at repetition 5. Okay? So let's see how that looks like now. And then, as you might have expected, the first repetition that's printed is number 5. Okay? But let's put it back to number 1. What is it? Oops, sorry. So after each iteration of the loop, we then increase this counter value by exactly 1. Okay? And this happens by the end of the iteration. So, in the first iteration, this string here is logged to the console with the current repetition, which stands at 1. So this here will be replaced by 1, and then afterwards, the rep counter will be updated to 2. Then, in the next iteration, the same string here is printed, but now with the rep at number 2. Then rep is updated from 2 to 3, and so on and so forth. And these loops keep running while the rep variable is less or equal to 10. So basically, while this condition here is true, and that's how we achieve exactly 10 repetition, so what the loop does is to verify before each repetition if all condition here still holds true, and only if it does, it will keep running the loop. So it will execute the next iteration, and so it will execute this block of code here one more time. And of course, we could change it to something else. So let's put it at, for example here, 30. And then we should get, you can see, 30 repetition of the same string, where only this counter here is changed. Alright, and in a nutshell, that's how the for loop works in JavaScript. In the next video, inshallah, we will see some more useful application of the for loop, and also talk about another type of a loop that we have in JavaScript. So I hope that you have understand this basic concept of for loop. So learn it very well. Try to review this video if it doesn't yet. Try to practice this one. It's very important before to jump to the next video, because I will show you more detail about the for loop. So take care of you, take care of us. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, please, Faisal Azib. And follow me on Instagram, Faisal Azib and Faisal Chico, and Teams Winners. I tell you goodbye. Wassalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.